Everyone to the San Mateo County Harbor District Board of Harbor Commissioners third amended special meeting for April 16 at 6 o'clock here at the Oyster Point Yacht Club. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan? Here. Commissioner Holsinger?
Here.
Commissioner Caravano?
Here.
Commissioner Tucker? Here. President Bernardo?
Here, thank you. So now we are going to go right into public comments and questions. I received an email earlier for which this person wanted to have read during public comment, so I'm going to do that first, and then afterwards we're going to have Porter McHenry, Mike McHenry, and then we're going to have David Mallory. So first let me read this, just for the record. It was to be read for the meeting tonight during public comment, and the subject is comments for budget workshop. It says, "Hi Debbie," for Debbie Nixon. "Hi Debbie, thanks for taking my call and answering my questions about the upcoming Harbor District Board meetings. Please read my comments at today's budget workshop, and if there are additional attendance at the 6 o'clock meeting, I think it would be helpful to read the statement in that meeting as well. I didn't read it earlier, so we'll just make sure we add it to the meeting minutes, because I did reference it. The comment is, as a tenant of Oyster Point Marina, I recommend updating the berthing rate schedule with reduced fees for boats smaller than 26 feet, even if they have no choice but to use 26-foot slips. I believe this will increase revenue by making Oyster Point Marina more attractive to owners of boats 24 feet and smaller. Currently, the monthly berthing rate for all boats 26 feet and smaller is $210. At neighboring Coyote Point Marina, however, the monthly rate of 22-foot boats is only $100. For 20-foot boats, it's only $162. Oyster Point Marina is no longer competitive for owners of 22-foot boats, and we are at a steep disadvantage for owners of 24-foot boats. In addition, existing tenants with 22-foot boats, like myself, are paying $110.25 per month. The new rate of $210 represents a 90% increase from one year to the next and is enough to make tenants reconsider their home marina. I will not renew my lease at a 90% increase when there is a far lower rate being offered by a neighboring marina, and I believe other 22-foot boat owners will feel the same way. Introducing reduced berthing rates for smaller boats smaller than 26 feet that are competitive with neighboring marinas like Coyote Point will attract new tenants and prevent existing tenants from leaving, thus boosting marina revenue. Thank you. Jonathan Wolfman. Okay, so that kicks off public comment. So, Mr. Porter McHenry. And please just make sure you're speaking into the mic right there, too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Porter McHenry, president of the Half-Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association. This Half-Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association represents commercial fishermen from Phillip Point Harbor, which is consistently one of the top 10 commercial fishing ports in California, $200+ million fishing industry. Yesterday, Half-Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association issued a press release, and I'm providing copies for this meeting. Basic information in the press release is our membership is pretty disappointed that the San Mateo County Harbor District did not keep promises to include stakeholders before infrastructure changes in Thompson's Pier. On January 15th, we presented a letter which we are presenting again tonight, asking to be included in decisions that affect our livelihood. At the meeting in January, which we watched on video, General Manager Grinnell and Harbor Master Grindy assured commissioners that no infrastructure changes would happen without stakeholder input. We have never been contacted with regards to our letter. Yesterday, installation of a new hoist began in a new location where there has never been a hoist before. This is another example of promises being made and not kept, and the Harbor District being out of touch with the industry. It came as a shock in the new hoist installation. Most of the fishermen and people that I've talked to realize it's going to be a major headache and doesn't really work with the port. It's going to cause a lot of, I see issues upcoming and affect everybody's ability to utilize the pier. I think it's worked pretty good before, and it's just a shame to throw a crook in the whole scheme we got going out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Mike McHenry.
My name's Mike McCary. Most of you know me. Pillar Point Seafood out of one of the tenants, 3 tenants at the end of the dock. All right, it's been over a year since Peter Grinnell promises both verbally and by letter that the district would use comparable rates in neighboring ports to establish a fair assessment from the district. Along with a letter stating we are late on our own assessments and the installation of a new hoist, totally blocking our current business in Morningstar. Pillar Point Fisheries feels that it's being harassed by the district because of my being quite vocal about the lies we have been told by the harbor board and manager. The space given to this new hoist not only doubles 3 captains' linear dock space, it forces our operation back against 3 captains' current space, of which they also have full control of. It now makes sense why 3 captains never complained about its elevated fees when those heavy wetfish assessments came on us. Obviously, they were given a deal under the table. Another hoist was never offered to us or Morningstar. It's all done under the table. The boats doing business at our dock are harassed by the harbor. It's obvious to now my vocal dismay of the harbor's dishonesty is being met with increasing harbor harassment, constantly asking when they will obtain competing port fees. All I hear about is there's newfound source of revenue on the backs of the tenants and the fishermen. The most recent form of harassment from the general manager was sent us by a letter on May 18th, and it says, Mr. Mike McHenry, Pillar Point Seafood. Mr. McHenry, this is to remind you that as of today, March 18th, 2014, we do not have copies of your offloading fees, worksheets for January and February 2014. We're now requesting that you send us the offloading fees worksheets for the months indicated above. Please contact our office if you have any questions. Well, right here, I've got the canceled receipts for January, where we went in, and it was signed off by your harbor personnel. I have it also for February, right there. And of course, March. We're very timely on this. And why are they coming after us saying, when they signed it, saying they didn't get it? I mean, is this just leading to something that's not going to be very good for me? I don't know. To finish up, we've got one last letter I want you to see. And it says, prior to that in February, which I'm sure you never saw this letter, and maybe you did, it's a very interesting letter. If I can find it here, and then I'll be done. And it's from Peter Astui in Monterey. And it was sent to San Mateo County Harbor District, Pillar Point Harbor. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter to inform you of the unprofessional manner in which I have been treated. I've had 2 to 4 boats at your location for the past 2 years. In the last 2 years, I feel that I have been treated as a second-class citizen by members of your staff, both on-site by your phone with your billing department. In the past 2 years, we have rented parking spaces during crab season. It took several months to recover our deposits. While constantly contacting your billing department to recover our deposits, our boats were liened, even though you owed me money. I had 1 truck parked at the south end of the parking lot where there was nobody around. That truck was ticketed 3 to 4 times. Once again this year, after my boats left your dock, I was working with your billing department on getting my credit for the deposit so that I could clear up my balance. My boat was liened again. Called your office, they apologized and said they would fix it. The very next week, we were leaned again on the same boat. When I contacted your office, they had leaned the wrong boat. Seemed as though someone is not paying attention. This has made it very difficult for me to work with you. At this point, I no longer wish to do business with you unless I have to. I understand there are several other people unhappy about this new administration also. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Mr. David Mallory.
Well, Shakespeare said years ago, there's something rotten in the state of Michigan. I would just, it's amazing what can be accomplished with a little communication and cooperation, which there's been none of regarding this hoist. And aside from the ethical issues regarding that, I would just like to ask either Peter or Scott or anybody, Section 9 in the lease says something about 15 feet access to go and come for all the other fish buyers. This hoist is right out near my corner where I store my bins. And I walk from the hoist to the other railing. It's only about roughly 20, 22 feet across. So I'd like to know how I'm supposed to operate my business while Larry's out there unloading whatever on that hoist. I don't get it. So maybe somebody can explain what the 15 feet thing means. Scott?
Thank you. Mr. Mallory, since this is public comment, we're not supposed to engage in dialogues, but staff will follow up with you with your question. So next, it's a little unusual, I have to say. The next public comment is from a commissioner, Sabrina Brennan, and I assume she's going to take off her elected official hat just for the moment to speak now. So Commissioner Brennan, do you want to have your 2 minutes?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I am speaking during public comment as a member of the public, not as a commissioner. And this is done at other special districts and city councils, so it's not that unusual. I prefer not to be doing this, but I certainly didn't expect that the events that have taken place this week were going to take place. So since I consider this somewhat of an urgent situation, I thought this was my only opportunity to address it. During the January 15th, 2014 meeting, President Bernardo made the following staff requests regarding placing a hoist in a new location on Johnson Pier. President Bernardo said to staff, we are going to have consultation with tenants and work with all stakeholders. So when that statement was made, it was clarifying that there would be consultation with tenants and there would be work done with stakeholders in relation to any changes on Pillar Point Harbor. That hasn't happened. President Bernardo said to staff, you're not going to go ahead and start moving things around without public process. That hasn't happened. There hasn't been a public process since then. President Bernardo said to staff, it's not going to be up to you, and I believe this was directed to the harbor master, this part of the comment. It's not going to be up to you. I hope I have that assurance. That's what I'm hearing, okay? I quote. Apparently, didn't quite work out that way. The general manager's response to President Bernardo's request, General Manager Grinnell said, yes, you do, meaning yes, you do have my assurance that we're not going to make these decisions randomly ourselves. We're going to get stakeholder input. We are going to get public input. We are going to have a healthy public process. So there was reassurance given by the general manager to President Bernardo that he would receive the things he was asking for. The general manager also said, no one is operating in a black box or a vacuum. That's not how we do business, I quote. Well, apparently that is how we do business. The general manager also made some comments about the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association, and he made a offhand comment about how they weren't climbing into the back room with him. There was some comment about the back room, yada, yada. That's all in the video. So anybody that wants to review and refresh their memory on the January 15th, 2014 meeting can find the video online, and it's also published on my website, which is sabrinabrennan.com. Again, that's sabrinabrennan.com. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we now have staff recognition. Is there any staff recognition?
None, okay. You'll find in the operations report the 2 letters that went to the staff as well as the commissioners. The first letter was to the specific Oyster Point Marina staff: Charles White, Jim Merlo, Gary Stern, Greg Gubser, Jim Smith, Matt Hoff, Neil McGeehan, and Abby Dominetta. And this is for a job well done. During the last few months, there's been a need to also remodel some showers. Instead of going and waiting till we could get capital dollars or something, we did it ourselves. They did an excellent job, saved a ton of money, and moved ahead. And their initiative was great. And so I wanted to commend them for that. At Pillar Point Harbor, there's another group: John Draper, Michael Williams, Dante Madrigal, Jerry Pemberton, Randy Bankford, Don Coates, Kerry Smith, and Jacob Walding. At H-Dock entry area, that was an area that needed a vast amount of improvement, and that's where our charter boats, party boats, are stationed for the most part. So the public walks through there a lot. And so they got that work done before the opening of recreational salmon season. It makes it a really nice entry for the public walking through, and I greatly appreciate their efforts. They used a lot of the older materials left over from the other projects, the plastic recycled wood, etc. And I think that good cost savings that way.
Thank you. Well, please, on behalf of the board, please give them all our thanks. And hopefully that'll be, I'm sure, in their personal records.
Yes, it is. It's sent also to Human Resources.
Excellent. Thank you. We are now at consent calendar. So we have meeting minutes of April 2, 2014, and meeting minutes of March 12, 2014.
So moved on both items?
I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second.
I have some comments, so that means we have to pull it off consent.
Okay. So let's do item number 1, meeting minutes of April 2.
Okay. So on page, well, first let me just start by saying I'm going to vote no on the meeting minutes for the same reasons that I always vote no on the meeting minutes, which is that the public's input is not reflected in the minutes. There is no information provided about what the public said, and very little information provided about what board members said, and the information that is recorded from board members is not objective, it's subjective. So in addition to that, on page 6 of 9, there's at the bottom of the page, it says, motion by Holsinger, second by Tucker, to initiate a new permit or renew the existing permit to move the project forward for staff to bring the 5 leases together to be on the same page and to update the engineer's estimate. The motion passed unanimously. And that's related to item 13, which was the update on the Pillar Point Harbor sidewalk improvement at Concessionaire's building. When we had that motion, I don't believe that that was the exact language of the motion, and this part about bringing the 5 leases together on the same page is not part of wasn't part of the motion, and I remember making a clarifying statement during this segment of the meeting to make it really clear that meetings with the leases should be transparent. There should be an open process. It should not be a private meeting that is separate from the public. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear, and I don't see that reflected here in the minutes, and I did bring that up. So I wish that the exact language of the motion was included in these minutes, and I'm voting no on them anyway, so there you have it.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, back to item 1. Do I hear a motion with?
Motion made and seconded.
I'm sorry, there was a motion made and it was the motion was.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was pulled off. So there's a motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Opposed?
Okay. So you have 4 ayes and 1 opposed. And going forward, according to the new Brown Act rules, if I'm not mistaken, there has to be a complete reading of the votes. And so what I'm going to do going forward now is, and tell me if I'm doing this right, Debbie, is you will do a roll call for everything. I know in the past, just for the public's information as well, in the past we've only done roll call for budget items or anything that involves money. But going forward, to comply with the Brown Act, we are going to just have Debbie do a roll call, and we will just record everything, okay, just for transparency and good government, okay? So that was my mistake, so we're gonna do it for the next one. So item number 2, meeting minutes of March 12th. Do I hear anything?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I hear?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any questions on meeting minutes of March 12th?
These meeting minutes are so thin, I can't vote to support these meeting minutes, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Opposed?
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. So, motion passes. We are now at public hearing, item number 3, which is draft preliminary operating and capital budget for fiscal year 2014-15. I declare the hearing open. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So, staff report, has notice been given, Mr. Grinnell?
Yes, it has, Mr. President.
Thank you. And now we are back to Ms. Galarza, who gave us a great presentation earlier today. Would you like to?
I just want to say about this budget is it is a working document. I think that we need to get estimates for the pier that's falling apart and look into incorporating those before it's accepted in June. Yeah.
Thank you. And for those who weren't here for the earlier meeting that we had where you provided the whole presentation, are there any highlights or anything that you want to mention, or?
Budgets are basically to set spending authority. The board gives us direction on how we should spend the user fees and tax revenues that we receive, and that's the primary purpose of the budget.
Thank you. And that was a really good presentation earlier
Thank
today,
you.
by the way. Thank you. So now we're at public testimony, and I do not have any speaker cards for this. Commissioner Tucker.
If we're going to go to commission, then I have a statement of minutes.
Oh, yeah, you go right ahead. You're
Thank
way
you,
ahead of me.
Mr. President. Well, we talked in general about this earlier at the budget presentation, which I agree with my colleague. It was very, very well presented and very articulate. It does show that our expenses far exceed our revenues by about 25%. And while I realize that we are affluent and we have $8 to $10 million in reserve or dedicated reserve, we also need to spend money on some things in infrastructure that have been deferred maintenance and been deferred too long. But I wanted to caution my colleagues, we cannot continue to spend at a 25% deficit of our revenues. It just is not going to work because after 3 or 4 years, we're going to find ourselves with no money and an extended budget. So during this process, maybe not tonight, but before we vote, I'm going to be looking to call out some monies in capital projects, which are the last to be put in and first to go. And it's kind of a little bit inconvenient, but we fund them at different levels. In other words, we might allocate $800,000 for something in the capital project, but might not spend it this fiscal year, might not spend it till next fiscal year. So instead of spending the whole $800,000 or accounting for it, maybe we only spend $100,000, so we pull out $700,000. I'm going to be looking to do that with things that are in the capital budget. And by the way, I support 90% of what's in the capital budget. I also want to see us, and this was touched on earlier during the presentation, I want to see us develop more of a public relations budget. It was mentioned that we do many things for many organizations. I want to start doing some things for us. This past year, we've accomplished an awful lot. And we're not seeming to get credit for that. And I think we need to hire someone, or at least engage someone that'll work with us towards public relations. I know, Mr. President, that's your area of expertise, and we look to you for a lot of times for op-eds or for statements. But we need to bring, I think, maybe somebody professional on a part-time basis. And I'd like to see us allocate something like, say, $25,000 to one of the budgets. I suspect probably administrative budget. But we need to go into the Pillar Point, the Oyster Point, and your budget and admin, and kind of pool some of that together so we can see exactly what we're spending. But those are the kinds of things that I want to discuss, and we'll look forward to cutting in this budget. But the biggest one of all is that we just cannot keep going for deficit spending. It just doesn't work. Thank you for the time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments or questions?
Yes. I just have what I think is a correction. If I can call your attention to page 16 of 47, commercial activity permits. You have a projected annual receipts of $35,000, and I believe that should be $3,500.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
What page was that?
16 of 47, that was the only
It's 16 of
Obvious.
47 or 13 of 44, depending on the number you're looking at.
an obvious arithmetic issue.
Yeah. Well, it's a slip of the finger.
I was trying to figure
Well,
that
there, we
out.
just
So
saved a lot of money.
is there a problem with the page numbers? Because I was trying to figure out what
Well, there's two sets, yeah.
13 and 44.
Sure.
So
What was the number that was called out on?
he called out, and it would be the number on your left, Sabrina. He called out page 16 of 47.
I'm looking at, I have 44 pages.
Oh, so
13
then
of
you
44.
want to be on page 13 of 44.
Okay. Which one are we?
Under
Fiscal year 13.
Under commercial activity permits, I meant to put 3,500 and I put 35,000. You see how it has 3317?
Yeah, I got it. 3,500.
Yeah.
Okay, I circled it.
But that's the only thing at this point
Well,
in time.
that was good.
Yeah.
We just saved some money.
Thank you. We like that. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions, commissioners?
I have some comments.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
Let's see, I wanted to first mention, is the sidewalk project included in here?
Yes.
It is, okay. And I just wanted to reiterate what we talked about for people who weren't here for the earlier meeting, that it was, the concept of adding some bioswales, or meaning a little strip of green space between the sidewalks, the new extended sidewalk when we get to that project, and the parking lot, might be a great opportunity to get some grant money for the project. And it would also improve the visitor experience, and I think it would make the businesses more successful. So I think that it would be good to try to get a sense of what these costs are going to be and if there might be some grant money available. And I think our strategic planners are very well versed in where monies can be gotten for projects exactly like that. So I think it would be good to talk with them about what that could look like and what the costs would be, and if, what types of grants we'd want to apply for, because it'd be great to get on that. Grants take a while to get in the pipeline, and I'm sure there's something out there. I know that the county of San Mateo County has received grant monies for exactly the same types of projects. And I think the Resource Conservation District even has helped with that with the county. So there's different avenues to check into. Additionally, now when Commissioner Tucker mentioned that we are spending 30% more than we have in revenue, or no, you said 25%. We discussed 30% at the earlier meeting. Isn't it 30% or is it 25%? I just want to get clear on that number.
It just depends what year you're looking at for
the last couple
it's
years.
been about 30 because we've had a lot of the capital expenditures in the last couple of years. So we've had to look to the reserves to fund those.
Okay, so I just
But
want
years prior, there,
it was
wasn't-
different.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to make it clear to the public that for the last few years, what we're learning is that the district has been spending about 30% more than what we bring in revenue from our operations and also from the countywide property tax that the district receives, and there's a few other sources of funding that we get as well. And then, let's see. I'm glad that it was brought up that we should take, it was, at the last meeting I brought up the idea of let's look at what we're spending on advertising and on marketing, and then President Bernardo, you have the right term for the fees that we spend for event-related support.
Sponsorships, when you sponsor organizations.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're going to be looking at those costs because they do kind of trickle in over the year, and they get divided up because we have our budget divided up into administrative, Oyster Point, Pillar Point, Commissioner. Am I missing anybody? Okay, so 4 different categories. So it's hard to pick through and find how all these various costs add up. And if we could get a clear picture of that, then I think as a district we could figure out the most beneficial ways to spend the money. I would say, though, that I think it's too soon to make a determination whether it makes sense to hire a part-time PR person. There may be some simple things that we could do that wouldn't require hiring someone that our current staff could do and maintain without adding a lot to the workload. And I think we should look at that, and I think we should look at, what we're spending on all of these things, including all the tchotchke free giveaway things we hand out, and the what we're spending on our website, and what we're spending in advertising, and just come up with a really smart plan on how to maximize and get the most bang for the buck. And I also would want to be careful that it was not perceived by the public that a PR person was being hired in an effort to help any elected officials who are campaigning. So I think we need to be careful about how that's perceived. I also really appreciated the earlier presentation, and I would urge the public to see it. The presentation was given by our finance director. It will be available on the Harbor District's website, and there's also going to be a secondary presentation which gives her notes. So you'll see the slide, and you'll also see the notes that relate to the slides. There'll be a lot of information there that will help kind of give an overview about the financial picture for the district. So look for that to be published on the district's website. And it was a good presentation. So we learned a lot. There's a few areas where I think we could probably learn even more, maybe giving a little bit more context or trying to project out some costs into the future. And we hit on some of that earlier, ways that the board could be more informed about unexpected potential upcoming costs. We talked about unfunded liabilities with relation to benefits. It sounds like we're in good shape with that, but we're going to check it out a little bit further. All of those things. So I think at this time, since we're going to be going over this budget, it sounds like a few more times. We have a whole schedule of budget hearings. I don't want to get too into the weeds. I'd rather wait until the presentation that we saw earlier today is online, and then the notes that we received from the finance director. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments, Commissioners? Commissioner Paravano.
Thank you. I can see a lot of value in what Commissioner Tucker was suggesting about looking at having more funds available for a public relations. And the reason I say that is I've seen a lot more of a follow-through with the harbor master coming to us with those brochures that talked about Oyster Point Marina and Pillar Point Harbor. I brought those to some businesses, and they absolutely love those. They've never seen anything like that before. So it's something very descriptive. So something, and these are just examples of what I have seen as an improvement in promoting the harbor and marina. And also I've seen the patrolmen engaging with a lot more of the visitors and the guests. Either they're paying guests or else they're visitors coming from all parts of the world asking the patrolmen questions, and they take the time to answer these questions, which, for us it's old hat stuff, about seasons and about the kind of fisheries, but for these people it's a brand new experience. And if we could document those in stories that would highlight the value of the patrolman to the harbor district, both at this marina and at the Pillar Point Harbor, I think it would go a long way in terms of saying that this is the place that we're open for business, and this is what we've done. These are our employees, and these are the things that you can do.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioners? I would like to just close things out by just saying, again, thank you for such an educational opportunity to learn Budget and Finance 101, especially for us non-finance folks. You did it in a way that was just easy to understand, and I love that. A couple of things, though, I want to piggyback. I agree with most of the comments that I've heard tonight. I would like to add one thing. Policy updates. I know that there was discussion several meetings back on updating our policies, and I'm not sure if that will be woven into the strategic planning process, which probably might. I mean, I'm going to assume here that it might. But specifically, when I think of policy updates, one of the steps we're going to have to take is taking all those boxes and scanning them. So if we have to put some money aside to get them scanned, let's get them scanned. Boxes of just files, historical documents, which should be, it should be in PDF.
30 to 50,000.
Okay, there you go. But when we're talking about budget, that's where I would like to see some of the money go. I mean, that's just for me, okay? I'm just speaking for myself because I know this is something that a lot of agencies struggle with. A lot of public agencies have boxes and boxes that just have to get scanned and put into PDF and filed online somewhere where the public can access them and where employees can access them. So that's one thing I want to say. The other thing, I've been hearing PR. Yeah, that's a good word. In the government sector, we call it public information officer, and their job is, most mid to large public agencies have a PIO, and their job is to communicate what's happening, to educate the public. It's basically an educational function. And PIO is public information. I mean, that's basically what it's all about. So I'm kind of torn. I don't know. For this size agency where you have 27 people, I'm like, I don't know if you should have a PIO. That's just my own personal opinion. But it goes without saying that the district does need to get its information out there, and accurate and timely information. That's what PIOs do. They get information out in an accurate and timely manner so that the public knows what's going on and isn't confused or has rumors flying left and right and people going crazy and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's basically getting information out there. So while I don't know if I support a position or even a half-time position. I do like the idea of finding a solution to getting information out there. So, so those are the two things I just wanted to add as we close.
Could I just piggyback on a couple
Sure.
of things you said? Because I appreciated your comments. So we have had one marketing committee meeting, and maybe this would be a good time to have another marketing communications committee meeting, and hopefully some staff could attend, and we could brainstorm some ideas on things that could be done relatively quickly that would improve our ability to get information that's the public needs out to them, and to to just provide that public information and make it more accessible, and do it in a way that isn't extremely time-consuming. And I think both you and I have a lot of experience with doing that with our day jobs. And I know I could teach a whole class on it if I've done that before. So I'd be happy to be a resource. I'm sure that the staff actually probably already knows a lot of this stuff. But I think it's just trying to figure out how to implement it and what the process would look like. And I'm sure you go through that at the Port of Oakland, where, somebody has to be designated to get the message out, and then is there approval process, and what does that look like? Because with the news cycle and with social media, there can't be any lag time, so you've really got to be responsive, and there are ways to do that even within a small agency like this, as long as everybody kind of knows what the game plan is. So that's a thought. And then I also am in big support of scanning and archiving our important documents, especially things like our resolutions, because if we had a fire at the building where our documents are stored, we would lose the entire history of the Harbor District. Would be gone. There would be nothing left. So we would be scrambling. I mean, it would be a complete disaster for this district. So we really have to prioritize getting this done, and it's unrealistic to think that the staff could do it all. I know that there are a lot of news services out there that are trying to make it happen, and maybe what we ought to do is look at some different bids, and then also look at some different ways of prioritizing the documents so that we could look at a range of prices.
If you want. Just not really part of the conversation because we're not really talking about that, but I do have someone that, actually Emily, that was working to replace Debbie while she was gone, but now that she's back, I've moved her to a couple of other projects, and that is one of them, so she is doing the resolutions now. Part of the problem is that over the years, I have to have her look at every resolution, because sometimes it'll have an attachment and it's not there, so then we have to search for that attachment. And so that's part of what she's doing as well. So once that gets done, the scanning is a simple process. It's done in like that. She goes, oh, I'm done with a year, But it's that tedious work that I don't know that we could give to anybody else.
I see what you mean.
Because we have to do that portion of it. And then when you go further back, as you know, when we had typewriters, we had that lovely onion skin type paper, and those don't scan like fast. They scan very slowly. So that's kind of why I'm kind of like, and then, and with my luck, we did send it out somewhere, that place would go on fire, and then it would be gone. So I feel like it's like our paper, and I don't want to give it up to anybody, so I feel that the job that we're doing now, I feel good about, because we've done the summaries, we're making sure that each resolution has the attachments it needs to have, and it's going to be tedious, but I think it's going to get done right, and hopefully fairly quickly, we can at least have a resolution.
Well,
so looking forward to
that sounds great.
that project.
And I'm sure there's no one better than our own staff to get the documents in order, because if we farm that out, other people aren't going to care the way that the staff cares about it. So I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, commissioners?
Continue the public hearing to the next regular meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to officially close the public testimony, and the commissioner deliberation has already completed. So I hear a motion to continue this to the next meeting. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I hear a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. So now we are at item number 4, which is, wow, this is just a repeat of our previous meeting. Draft district rates and fees schedule for fiscal year 2014-15 for Oyster Point Marina Park. I have one public comment card, but why don't I have Ms. Galarza kind of give us the broad overview of sort of what the big result is
The
of all
broad
of this?
overview are there's no dollar changes.
There's no dollar.
There's no dollar changes, other than at Pillar Point, if a fisherman who's renting a space for their crab pots uses pallets, they're not going to be given a refund for their deposit, because what we're finding is those pallets are left behind, they cost money to clean up, and, you know, if everybody took everything away and we just had our parking lot back, it would be fine, but we're left with a $3,000 bill every fishing season. The oil pads are now free, with 6 are free, and we're putting some language in there that says except for emergencies. That way they know if there's a big spill, they can cover that. And then basically the last point is that the RVs have to be self-contained when they're on our facility.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So we have the public comment card from Mr. Brian Rogers.
Actually, we can scratch that. I misunderstood what I was reading. I thought they were changing the rate.
Okay, so again, just for the record, there is no change in the rates.
No money changes other than no refund of deposits.
Except for the crab pots and the...
Right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So commissioners, any questions, comments on this item?
I just have a question.
Commissioner Holsinger.
Directed to both General Manager Grinnell and Harbor Master Grindy. You heard the email read by the person about a concern about the rates for small boats. And I'm just wondering if you understand why they believe the rates were being increased somehow, and if you could just simply respond to that, because the proposal is for no change in rates.
I'll respond to that. During last audit, they went through all of our books for 2 weeks, and one of the things they did was they did a sample of what are tenants paying and what are our rates and fees. And they found that people weren't being charged the size slip they're in. And we have spent a lot of time complying with what the auditors say, because if someone's in a 26-foot slip and paying $110.25, and someone else is in a slip paying paying $230, which one is a gift of public funds? So what happened is, at Oyster Point in particular, there had to be about 40 to 50 people paying $110.25. Those aren't all those people aren't here complaining. There's a few that are complaining, but you know, they want the $110.25 rate, but they're in a 26-foot slip. So the auditors told us, if you don't clean up your act, we're going to write you up next time. And we want to do everything that is prudent to the public, that keeps treating people fairly, and you know, that's where it came from.
Thank you.
Also, respond also is that part of the other problem at both marinas is you may have different size slips that are not in those categories. Just to kind of complement what you were saying, in the smaller sizes, you know, it's how we were designed. And so unless we do modifications to the fingers and spend potentially capital dollars to change the marina, its size arrangement, it's hard to come up with ways to make the auditor happy as well as meet the criteria.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Commissioners, any other questions?
I have some questions.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
I'm going to start with this since we're just talking about it. I know there's been multiple people that have been concerned about the fact that they have a small boat and they claim that they were put into a larger slip because there wasn't a smaller slip available. And there has been, you know, there's often moving of boats to try to fill slips. I think that, you know, when you have a bunch of empty slips, it makes sense to try to fill the slips versus have no one in the slip. But I also understand the need to try to fill the slips with the right size boat. So it's a hard thing to try to balance. Right now, the occupancy is not great at Oyster Point Marina. We don't have that problem at Pillar Point Harbor, especially since, salmon season is happening and all of that. But this business about what the auditor says, I don't quite get that, because the auditor, I don't understand what jurisdiction the auditor has over the decisions about how we deal with this problem. That's unclear to me, and I've heard that brought up before.
That is that we have a published rate that we charge people, and we're not doing that.
So just so I understand, the published rate, and we're talking about like the 26-foot for 210,
Right.
what was that before we raised it?
210,
So what were they being charged?
110.25.
Why? Okay, when were we charging 110.25? Where did that rate come from?
I wasn't doing that
It was
then.
before my time, yeah.
Before my time.
So that rate was something from a few
Someone
years
great,
ago?
Yeah.
Okay, so a few years ago, we had a rate for 26-foot that was 110.
Well, no, wasn't it for the 22-foot?
Yeah,
That's
there
all
was.
filled, and we can't use that.
Right, there is some smaller slips, but they're filled.
They're
Okay.
filled by silt and other things. People can't use them for their
Yeah.
boat.
So if we had a 22-foot slip, which you're saying we don't have any available right now because they're
Right.
unusable?
Yeah.
What is the rate for a 22? Is that where the
That's
one?
where the 110.20, that was an old rate for 22 feet.
Okay, so did these people start out in a 22-foot slip and then they had to move out because it got silted in, and then that rate was transferred to where they moved to? Is that how this happened?
I think what happened, I believe what happened is they were moved to another slip just because they were moved to another slip,
Well-
and they still got to pay their $110.
Part of the problem was also is that we were doing construction out here. When I first got here, many of the people had already been relocated, and a lot of times they'll be sent to, they'll say, we're going to have to move you to a available 30-foot slip, but we'll still charge you this rate because it's our fault that we're moving you.
Right.
Because construction's going on or
Right.
whatever. And you must remember also where the ferry terminal is, there was more slips.
Yeah.
And they weren't all that large. So when we had that loss, it made it, that smaller size went away in a lot of ways. So then.
So we've
that's where-
lost the 22-foot.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so it seems that there is a need for these small slips. I mean, that's the impression I'm getting. Is that?
Without getting into the weeds of it too much, I think that what I've run into in my lifetime in the marina business is that there's a need for small slips, but there's not a full year need for the small slips. And so what you're doing is you potentially are accommodating someone with a small boat who comes for 3 to 4 months versus someone who's staying here for a full year. And, just off the concept for a second, my first thought would be is that if someone stayed for a full year, we could maybe look at how long those people could stay. But the short boats, they come in for a fishing season of 2-3 months, halibut or whatever out here, and they're gone, typically.
But they don't do that. They don't come here for that, do they?
Yes, they do.
So you get fishing boats here
Yes, we
for
do.
halibut? Okay. Well, we have a bunch of empty slips. What could we do to try to make this marine? Do you have any ideas what we could do to make?
I have some ideas, but I would have to work through with Deborah first, make sure we
Okay.
can make it work with also our marina program. Because one of our other problems is we're trying not to have handwritten billing. Right now, we're a computerized billing for a majority of what we do. And so you don't want to have it to where all of a sudden we're having to go non-automated. Because then all of a sudden it's more staff time continuing to have to go back to that slip every time to charge them by hand.
Meaning that if we were charging somebody less than what our system says. So part of this is how the system dictates.
And I ran into this up in Washington too. It's a similar problem. And what we ended up having is a 2-rate system that may be able to apply here. If you're short term, you pay the higher rate. If you're a full year or longer, you pay the lower rate. And there might be a way to work that, but I had to look at also how long do those small boats stay, and is it worth the effort to go through that if it turns out majority of the small boats don't stay anyway.
Okay.
And I think it was mentioned, we have competition around here. Let's see what it is. Let's get our rates for all of our
Right.
stuff and see. And maybe we do need to lower it to get people back, you know?
Okay.
That's another thing to think about.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it'll be really helpful to look at that, and I know that it's a lot of work to put that together, but I think especially given that we're trying to fill slips, this would be a
Well, we
great...
need more revenue, we know that.
Yeah, it'd be a great time to review it. Just the last thing I'm going to say on that topic is that, you know, I understand we need to bring in revenue, we need to, you know, maximize the slips we have. If we don't have 22-foot slips, then that means we're putting tiny boats into bigger slips, and that's a problem, I get all that. But at the same time, we are a public facility, and we want to encourage boating, and we want to encourage people with small boats to boat, and we want to encourage people with large boats. So if there was a way to maybe have a few slips or some facility for the smaller boats, I don't know how we would do it, I think it would be good for boating. And so I think that's another thing to think about too is, you know, we're doing some great things with, we've got the kiteboarding, we've got, you know, we've got the windsurfing, we've got people kayaking, we've got the dragon boats. These are all like human-propelled boats, and we want to encourage that sort of boating. And there are also people who have small boats that need slips too. So I'll be really interested to see what you guys come up with, and I appreciate you working on it. Okay, I'm going to keep moving.
Mr. President, time?
Yes. We do have a 5-minute limit on comments. And I'm sorry, it passed already, I assume, right?
And I wasn't talking the whole time.
Okay. Go ahead and ask another question, and then...
So I wanted to just quickly go over some of the things that we went over earlier for the benefit of the public that wasn't here at that time. And the staff has already done some of that. Just trying to look at my notes. These are our fees for slips and for things related to slips and for things like day-use parking, crab pot storage, commercial services and activity permits, commercial activity permits. Okay, but I don't see on here fish buying fees and things like the fees for our tenants that pay fees.
Those are in their contracts.
I know they're in their contracts, but I think it would be helpful to have that information made available to the public, and
But it
I don't-
doesn't pertain to anyone in the public, just the people that hold the contract.
Well, the public is interested. The public wants to know what those fees look like. And if you're, like, say you were trying to decide which harbor to go to with your commercial fishing boat, it might be very helpful to have that information. So you'd have, you could make a choice based on the fees, just like our slip holders do. If you don't have the information, then you're kind of going in blind. And since we are putting these fees on our tenants, I think that information, I don't know that it necessarily goes on the same web page or whatever.
Those are not our fees, so they're not our fees. They're the leasing fees.
Well, they're the fees the district charges the leasees, and these are the fees that the district charges the leasees. So it's really the same thing as far as these are all fees. I just would like to have that information in an accessible place because it's sort of mysterious, and I get questions about it a lot, and it's hard to explain, and we should make it available somewhere on the website.
Okay, I'd like to just kind of ask a question from Ms. Savory on this. In terms of our contractual agreements with fish buyers, what are we allowed to provide to the public in terms of information, and what are we not allowed to per lease agreement and contractual agreement?
Well, whatever your lease provides that they must show you, it would be public information.
It's all public.
Okay, okay.
But we're not treating it as such,
Okay.
and that's my point.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Moving right along, we are now at, I'm sorry, Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Grinnell, you're not expecting us to approve those this evening, are you?
No,
Okay.
not yet.
Okay.
Basically, this is the beginning of this whole process.
Thank you.
Thank you. And earlier, just to piggyback on that, Ms. Galarza gave us a schedule, sort of a roadmap to up and through the acceptance of the budget on July 1st. And so there's a whole schedule of, I don't know how many meetings, there's several of them.
It'll be
budget
on the
meetings.
website.
It's on the website. Okay, so.
Mr. President, just as a point of information for the public, the board did establish some time ago an approach whereby once the initial first draft budget is presented and introduced, that we continue to put you continue the public hearing at every board meeting until you finally adopt the budget.
Thank you for that
And that
clarification.
is why it's on right now, even though you had a workshop a few hours ago.
Thank you for that, because again, that's benefit to the public for those who don't understand our budgeting process. So we're now at item number 5, district rates, draft district rates and fee schedule for 2014-15 for Pillar Point Harbor.
Mr. President, I'm going to recuse myself because of economic conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you.
No change except for the pallets.
Okay, thank you. So what we heard earlier regarding Oyster Point is the same for Pillar Point. There's no rate changes except for what you mentioned about crab pots. Pallets. Pallets. Okay.
And some wording on a couple things.
And some more. Okay, so let's have, I have a comment card here on actually items 4 and 5. So let's take this now. Mr. Leonard Warren.
This is regarding your cost for duplication of public records. The 25 cents a page is ridiculous. It's just punitive. It's intended primarily to discourage public participation. And I would argue that it's actually illegal. The dollar per, I don't remember how it's phrased, for electronic records is completely illegal. The Public Records Act, part of the government code, in section 6253, says that you shall make the records promptly available to any person upon payment of fees covering direct costs of duplication. Now, if you email public record electronically, your direct costs are zero. You have absolutely no direct costs, therefore there is no legal charge whatsoever. For photocopies of records, there is no possible way that you can argue with a straight face that your copying costs are higher than a copy shop that has to make money and has to include their indirects. You're only allowed to include your direct costs. Copy shop has to include their indirect costs. And the copy shop in Half Moon Bay, the only one I'm familiar with, charges 10 cents a page, including their indirects. So your direct costs cannot legally be any higher than what a for-profit place, including their indirects, has to be. So the most that you could possibly justify would be 10 cents a page. And you can't justify any charge unless somebody comes in and says, can you put this on a CD for me, and you supply the CD. Okay, that's the one case where I've seen legitimate charges for electronic records. But that's not typical. And as you probably could guess, I deal with a lot of government agencies. I have never, ever heard of a charge for electronic records except for the very, very crooked county elections department, which I'm going to be dealing with that at some point also. So I ask that you eliminate the charge for electronic records unless the district provides media that somebody wants you to provide it on a CD or whatever, and that you readjust the fee for photocopying to something that's more reasonable, using as a model a for-profit copy shop. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Just through the chair, if I may.
Okay, Ms. Harris?
It should say CD or electronic.
What should say CD? I'm
The
sorry.
rates and fees, we've never charged for an electronic document, and so it's not $1 for an electronic document. It would be
Okay,
$4.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Warren, if I'm not mistaken, he said that it's 25 cents per photocopy. That's what he's referring
Right,
to.
and we can check on those rates, but I think it's pretty
Okay.
standard for Public Records Act.
Okay.
It also says electronic copy, $1 per document.
That should say CD.
So what
For
they're
CD.
saying is they're going to change it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah,
They're going to
please change.
revise it.
Sorry, I was confused because I still had the 25 cents on my mind, and that was
We'll check on
photocopying.
that, but I think that's standard with other agencies. We looked at that before, but we'll definitely make the correction.
Thank
for
you.
that.
That's perfect.
Can I give you one other data point? We're not a sanitary district. For longer than I've been on the board, charges 10 cents a page, and we tweaked the policy to match Coastside County Water, where the first 4 pages are free because it's not worth the trouble of collecting 40 cents or something.
Thank you. Okay. Commissioners, anything on item 5? Okay. Moving right along, we are at item 6, insurance renewal.
Mr. President, I believe before moving on to item number 6, we should give an opportunity to notify our commissioner.
Commissioner.
Perhaps we can do that as a 5-minute break and get him back
Sure,
in.
that's a good idea. Let's have a 5-minute break and come back at 7:20 to continue with item 6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nervous.
Okay, are we on audio and video? Okay, great. We're on. So we're back at item 6, and just so you know, because of our guests tonight, just out of respect for them being here tonight, I'd like to just change the agenda a little bit. We're going to have the insurance presentation, item 6, and then right after, I'm going to move item 10 up, so we'll have the kiteboarding after that. Okay, so let's have item 6, insurance renewal forecasting and broker renewal. Mr. Grinnell, can you please explain this item?
Yes, very briefly, Mr. President and Commissioners. It's time again to renew our insurance program coverage for the Harbor District. And we are working, of course, with McCorkle Insurance Services. And they are coming to the end of their current arrangement with the district and have requested the opportunity to continue working with us. And so tonight, this agenda item has 2 pieces to it. One, bringing you up to date on the outlook for our insurance program. We're not quite ready to recommend approval of a new program because carrier quotes are still coming in. But we have Mr. Ali Anand from McCorkle, who will give you a presentation on basically our recent history with insurance and in the industry, and the outlook for this coming year, and also make a brief presentation regarding renewal of the arrangement with McCorkle. So with your permission through the chair, I'd like to ask Ali to make a brief presentation.
Great, thank you, and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time. McCorkle Insurance Service is very pleased to be in front of the board today, well ahead of our July renewal. As you may recall, last year we were a bit down to the wire, really because we were negotiating an alternative policy with ACE Insurance, who had come in kind of at the last minute with a substantial savings in cost, and we had gone back to Travelers, who's your current insurer, and had negotiated with Travelers, and we're very happy to have renewed a $30,000 savings last year. This year, what we have in front of you is a 3-year modeling of what the premiums and commissions that have been paid out for the property and casualty insurance for the Harbor District. You can see the $30,000 savings from 2012 to 2013 based on our hard work from last year. This year, we had met with Travelers and the head of their Ocean Marine Division and said, look, we really don't want to go through the same rigmarole of, going out, getting competitive bids. We did this last year. We had a carrier come in much under where Travelers was. We feel that Travelers is a good place now. So we've had Travelers agree to give us a flat renewal from a rate standpoint, which means that they won't be increasing their rates in any way, shape, or form. We may still have an increase on the Travelers pieces, which is everything except for the workers' comp and management liability, which is the directors and officers insurance. We may have an increase on the Travelers piece if we have increases in exposure. So if we buy a new building or raise any of our values. But from a pure rate standpoint, we have a flat renewal from Travelers for the upcoming year. So based on that information, we feel that we can provide a timely renewal this year. We look forward to presenting our renewal quotes the first meeting of for the board in June. We should have that all wrapped up by that time. Outside of the Travelers renewal, the management liability and the workers' comp pieces, we are expecting a 10 to 15% increase based on market conditions of what we've been seeing from the market. We don't have those rates in yet, and we're still working with those carriers to generate those rates.
I'm sorry, did you say 10, 15% increase in workers' comp?
On workers' comp and management liability, just the base rates.
May I continue with one more question? Have we had claims this year?
Not this year, but there's a lag time for claims.
Right.
So if we had one 3 years ago, which we did, then
It's catching up with us
it'll
now.
catch up. It's like a 2-3 year lag time.
It's also a function of the marketplace, Commissioner Tucker, where the employment marketplace as a whole has been taking huge increases. So if you look at statistics from the EEOC from 2007 to now, the amount of employment-related claims has nearly tripled, in monetary benefits paid, and actually the number of severity cases filed. So it's a function of the marketplace as well. We're going to effectively shop and market the workers' comp and management liability policies to the marketplace. So we hope to provide a few options at the renewal meeting in June.
Thank you.
Is there any questions on the 3-year outlook and our expectations for the renewal in June?
Any questions, Commissioners?
I am getting tired because we've been at this since 3 o'clock, and I don't know what I'm looking at. What are we looking at here?
So you're looking at 2011 premiums paid, and then the block under that is 2011 commission collected from the policies.
What does that mean?
Commission is as payment to McCorkle from the policy premiums. So commission collected to our agency,
Oh, commission to you guys
to the brokerage firm,
And
yes.
the top part is what we pay for.
Top part
is the actual, okay.
Yes.
So I see we have 2013, and then here, there's the side note that says Travelers confirm rates will be flat, so that means that we're still at 352,000?
Except for, that's
Except
just
for-
where the asterisk is. So except for workers' compensation and management liability, those we don't anticipate will stay the same. They will probably go up.
They'll go up, everything with an asterisk is going to go up a little
Everything
bit.
with an asterisk is going to remain flat from a rate perspective.
Oh.
But again, we might have an increase if we have increases in exposure, or a decrease if exposures have decreased.
Okay, but then workers' comp and management liability goes up by 10%.
Is what we're expecting. Again, we have to market, effectively shop the marketplace before we know exactly what that is. But we'll have that information well in advance of our June renewal for you folks in early July renewal, in early June.
Okay, so then you're going to come back.
I'm going to come back in early June and go through all the numbers and the final result of our market.
Okay, and then as far as your commission goes, is that going to be flat or is that changing?
So that is kind of the second topic. If you flip the page, and I believe in your packet you have 2 pages, which is our renewal proposal, and then the third page is what we had the previous 3 years in place with the Harbor District. So if you look a couple pages back, you're going to see a June 10th, 2011 dated letter, which is a fee agreement between McCorkle Insurance Service and the district for a 3-year arrangement and the fee of $39,600. This fee agreement was done a little bit strangely in that the commissions were still taken out of the policy, and at the end of the year, we would do restitution of, whether that was $39,600 more or less, and shake that out. What we'd like to do on the renewal is switch to a $40,000 fee. Then we would quote the policies net of commission, and it would have more transparency for the commission of, what is that exactly being paid to us as your broker. It also aligns our interests with you, so as rates are going up and premiums are going up, our compensation stays the same.
Okay, so your compensation was going up in the previous plan, if
you look at the past 3 years, it stayed about the same.
Yeah.
So, but with rates increasing on the workers' comp and the management liability, and also travelers giving us a flat rate this year, most likely next year, they'll come with some kind of an increase, and we'll have to go through a marketing process again. So, we do feel like this is a benefit to the district to keep it flat.
Okay. I have a question for the general manager. Are we required to do an RFP for this sort of a service, or how does that work?
You're not required. It's your discretion.
Okay.
We have in the past, from time to time, issued RFPs for various professional services. In fact, we have just done so for legal services. It varies. It's totally up to the board.
Through the president, if I may. Just from a staff, it's great to have consistency in the insurance with my insurance person. I mean, Janet and Ollie are both very attentive, and if I have a question, a quick question, I get an immediate response. They know the marina, they know the harbor, they know what kind of personnel we have, what equipment we're looking at. I think with the harbor, with us being so unique, for us to be able to find an agency that can work with us as a harbor and a marina is great in our unique situation. So from my viewpoint as a staff member, it's very easy to work with them. And I think, it's just like when you're at home, you have your own insurance agent. I think it's great if you can keep the same one over years and years and years, because you build that relationship and they know you and you know them, and it just makes the work easier and you get responsive. I mean, I think when we had the problem with the pier accident, we got immediate response from the insurance person, and it was dealt with immediately. And so I think that's...
You mean when the boat hit the...
When the McHenry boat hit the pier.
Yeah. So I think that we would, as far as staff is concerned, I'd love to see that relationship, because it works really well, and they do a good job.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So, commissioners, what would you like to do with this item?
Do we have to do anything?
I think this is an informational item.
Oh, it's only informational?
It's both. It's informational with respect to the entire insurance program. We are looking for board action on the renewal of our agreement with McCorkle.
Okay, because I see a proposed action here, so I mean, this is what you're recommending, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, commissioners, do I hear any motions or anything? What would you like to do?
I think it was mentioned that he was going to come back in first meeting in June.
Okay.
June, we will bring to you the full final quotes for the renewal of our entire insurance program, which we can't do yet because they're still shopping the market for the best carrier rates.
What is the deadline by which we have to make a decision? Like, when is the contract up? Does it say that here?
Well, I believe it's up in June, but,
I think it's the end of June.
staff doesn't plan to do anything between now and then about it.
If I may, Mr. President?
Yes.
Do you want me to speak first?
No, go right ahead.
Yeah. I believe that the proposal from the broker to do a flat fee and not take separate and additional commission is in the best interest of the district and will allow him to more truly be an advocate for us and our representative in the negotiations and in the current bidding that might go on with insurance companies. So I would move approval of the proposed action to renew the McCorkle Insurance Services contract for a fee of $40,000 a year for 3 years, in exception to commission on their part for the insurances that they place based upon the schedule they've provided. So if there's some brand-new thing out there, it's a separate issue.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. Let's have...
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Okay. So I know we went through this last year, and there was a lot of discussion about the policies and whatnot. It seems like when this is brought to us, if there was information that gave us some idea of what is normal for insurance costs for an agency like, I just feel like I have no idea. I don't know if this is a good price or if this is not a good price. I'm sure this company is excellent, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if this wasn't a great deal, but I'd kind of like some evidence to that effect, and so that I could feel like we've got a really good thing going here, or at least it's in the ballpark. And so I feel like I'm being asked to vote on something without the relevant information I need to make an informed decision, and so I'm a little concerned about that. Although I also hear that the staff is very happy with the situation, so I'm inclined to just go with it. But going forward, I'd really appreciate it if we had more data to look at, because this is a big decision. We're talking about a lot of money here, and we need to be better informed before we make this decision about, what competitive costs might be. Thank you.
Thank you. So any other questions before we do a roll call? Okay, let's do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Olsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker? President Bernardo?
Motion carries. So we were moving item 10 up just because our folks are here from kiteboarding. So we have item 10, commercial permit for wind over water kiteboarding. Report from Ms. Harris. So Ms. Harris, would you like to explain this item?
Yes, we have commercial activity. As business as wind over water kiteboarding, and we are recommending his commercial activity permit for his wind over water. This service will April 1st through October 15th. Talks about the lessons that he had, that his employees are certified first aid and CPR. This will be the second kiteboarder in our location here, and the other one is, Action Sports. And they are both here if you have any questions for them. We've had a couple of meetings with both of them regarding, working together because they are both going to be in the same immediate area. So.
Mr. President, I would move approval.
Okay, I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Are there any questions?
I have some questions.
Commissioner Brennan?
Since I wasn't around for those meetings, I'm wondering what I don't know if I can ask them.
Yeah,
Can I just,
they're
okay,
different
great.
questions.
So since you both have similar businesses, I'm wondering if you're comfortable working that closely together, like what's your perspective on that? If you think it'll create synergy or if it will possibly harm the business that's already been here. Yeah, you can sit if you want.
Hi there. My name is Obi Malita, and I'm the owner of Kite 415, the other kite school that's been operating in the harbors for the past 6-7 years, I think. I do not oppose that Jeff Kafka with the Blue Water is receiving a permit. However, my concern comes because 7 years ago is when I opened the company, I requested an exclusive permit, for operation at Oyster Point Marina, based on the fact that the only reason we operate out of this marina is to have access to one little bay where we perform the water lesson. That little bay is very little and will not accommodate a lot of instructor teaching at the same time. And based on the fact that we all have to teach in the same period of time, depending on the wind, it can be very agglomerated. Now, I've been informed, or we came to the conclusion that both schools are going to come to an agreement on how to operate at those locations without interfering with each other or creating an accident or something like this. However, I am concerned that maybe 2 weeks down the line, again uninformed, a third business will show up in the harbor and we'll have even greater competition and even greater risk, or will suffocate basically that location or obligate one of the businesses, for example myself, to move out of this game, because I don't consider it's worthwhile doing it. And I have practiced here for 7 years with a impeccable record, and somehow I think that prior taking a decision, it would have been nice, if we could have talked about logistics and made a plan on how to operate multiple businesses of the same kind. And although I agree with the new participant or the future business and the harbor, I would like to see if there's anything we can do in order to accommodate those needs, or to create a strategy, where we don't feel like our time and investment and effort, is just going to go down the drain because we're going to include multiple businesses in the harbor doing the same thing.
So could that look like coming up with sort of a cooperative schedule? Because it sounds like scheduling is part of the concern, so that there's not people running into each other.
Well, unfortunately, we all depend on the wind window. And when the wind starts, and usually it's in the afternoon, we all have to teach. And my personal agreement with Jeff Kafka was the fact that he will respect our seniority at the location, and he will not be intrusive, at our location. However, there's nothing written, and we have no certitude that those things will be performed this way. However, I do trust Jeff. I'm a friend with him, since 11 years so far, and I hope that we can negotiate a strategy, where both schools can be profitable, and we can attract the type of business that we engage ourselves to do so. But my near concern is that because so far as I've been informed, there is no exclusive permit, for businesses at Oyster Point Marina. I'd like to know what kind of insurances I can get personally as a business, that tomorrow 5 other schools or not a school, will be having a business permit here as well. So that's my only question.
Okay. Well, I thank you for explaining that. My brother operated a windsurfing school for many years, and so I can kind of understand what the issues are. But it seems to me that it makes sense that we couldn't have infinite numbers of these types of So how do we make sure that we aren't putting people out of business? Is there a way we can cut it off here?
I mean, I think, that's part of the reason why we had them both come in. Scott and I talked to both of them, and I think if we got a third application, that would definitely be the first thing we would do. I think it'll be, you stressed that, and we've listened, and we're going to listen to you on that. And I feel, sure that Scott and I should come in our tenure that we're here. And, I'm happy to make notes in the file that, we will take a second glance. I mean, we did vote in 2012 not to give exclusivity, and that is something that we would look at again to decide whether we would want to. I mean, if OE's asking us to bring that forth, maybe we put a memo together to say that the two of you will have exclusivity now, and we can bring that before the board, and you guys can vote on that. I'd be happy to do that. And
We can do
that's
that
a great
tonight.
solution, and staff would be happy to do it.
We could do that tonight.
Could we make that part of this motion?
And I can bring it back as a...
Is that a friendly amendment you want to offer?
Yes,
Would you say it?
that we make this an exclusive agreement so that there aren't any additional,
To those two?
to these two, yes.
So long as they continue to be licensed.
Friends.
No, so long as they continue to be licensed concessionaires,
With the permission of
I
my
really
second, I'll accept that amendment.
I really appreciate your help and the fact that you guys listened to this matter, because it's been a very big problem, and I'm glad we can clarify it and find a solution for it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank
So I
you.
hear a motion and a second. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
I,
Mr. Paravano.
I support both of you wanting to do similar type of businesses under the auspices of a commercial activity permit. And I understand that there could be, by granting exclusivity to both of you, that it's going to prevent other people from applying for doing this business. Before the friendly amendment was proposed, I thought that the criteria in approving the commercial activity permit is based on safety. That is probably the number one issue that gives us direction as a commission to approve or disapprove a commercial activity permit. Now, when the idea of exclusivity, applying exclusivity to a commercial activity permit, I think goes beyond the scope of a commercial activity permit. I'm asking staff for assistance in this,
If I may.
because I
Mr.
think then
President.
if you want exclusive rights, then you get into more of a lease as opposed to a commercial activity permit, because commercial activity permits are approved on an annual basis. And I raise this just to protect everybody. But I think you certainly have a safety issue that would deter anybody else. I mean, you're on both of you on the borderline, it sounds like, of operating both of you in a small bay. But if a third person comes, and then there's definitely a safety issue. Then it's easier to address that. I just want to make sure that we're protected in terms of assigning or approving a commercial activity permit.
Well, if I may, I can give you two examples where the Harbor Commission has taken action to limit certain activities. Number one is the Mavericks surfing competition, where, as a matter of historic fact, there was one applicant which received a permit, and then a second applicant appeared on the scene, but ultimately, to make a long story short, it's been a long day, the Harbor Commission basically determined that there could only be one such major event dealing with surfing out in that location for a variety of operational and safety reasons. And the decision that the commission made back at that time was first come, first serve, and if a waive condition came along and the first permittee chose not to have the event on that day, then the other party could if they wished to do that. Well, long story short is that second entry chose to disengage and just left and never came back. The point is that the Harbor Commission said there's a definite limit to how much of activity of this particular kind in that kind of situation. Item number one. Item number two relates to what the district calls land-based commercial activity permits, whereby you actually established what amounts to a policy whereby after some research and consideration you determined, and this was for Pillar Point Harbor, how many commercial, so-called land-based commercial activity permits would be approvable for what kinds of activities in what kind of location. So you were definitely establishing criteria for judgment. So in fact, there was, as a direct consequence of that, a recognition of a certain exclusivity. And so that in and of itself doesn't mean anything particularly. I think as you are examining this situation tonight, it harks back to those other ones where you were looking at the particular situations. Now in this case, from what I am hearing and from what I understand, it will remain to be seen. These two folks seem to be willing to try to reach a mutual operational accommodation, and it remains to be seen if that's going to work. If there are issues, obviously, things will have to be done. I think I would agree that, another such activity would be too much. And I think without having to necessarily establish exclusivity, if somebody did show up, you could just say, sorry, we're not in a position to honor your thing. We have enough.
I think that was a great explanation.
President Bernardo.
Pretty about the 5 minutes.
Okay, any other questions?
Call for the vote.
Because I just want to say one last thing, and bear with me. No, bear with me. This will be 10 seconds. I really think that we all have a lot to learn from both of you in terms of just your respectfulness towards one another and your collaboration. I know you've been friends, 11 years or whatever, but still, to be in business and to have both of you, just be respectful and collaborative. I mean, I think that's an excellent example. I think everyone should all be like that. So thank you. I hear a motion in a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan? Aye. Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now back to item number 7, which is Tiger Grant application, which is Transportation Investment and Generating Economic Recovery Grant. And Mr. Grinnell, Mr. Grindy has this report.
Yes, Mr. President, if I may, I'd like to defer to Harbor Master Grindy, who has really put in the major preparation on this.
The Tiger Grant, in short, is a zero match for us if we apply.
Meaning, I'm sorry, can you
Zero
explain
match,
that?
okay, yeah, sure. It's been a long day, as they say it. It's like I'm trying to remember the exact words I should say here. Many times with federal grants, you have like a 25% match, so if you had $100, we had to chip in on 25. This is a fast-track grant where, because of our, and we verified this, we qualify for the zero match category. Does not mean that we're going to win, but we're going to make our best effort. I have done one Tiger Grant before as a team up north. This is a grant that will do a lot of infrastructure improvements in the sense of highway entrance. It's going to benefit greatly our commercial fishing, our recreational fishing, and our general public to drive into Pillar Point. What it's all about, in short, is that to describe what it does, is it would be an improvement to the roadway, the turns for semis as you come from Highway 1 into and out to the end of the pier, including improvements to the pier. At this time, we have our draft concepts we're submitting, and if we were approved, which would probably be about a year from now to here, give or take a couple months, we would then move to a stage of, they tell you how much you're going to get. Then we move to the next stage of start to go out and do RFP for consultants and all the other steps, and then move for the community and the tenants and all that type of involvement, because we need to make sure that it meets their criteria. But our goal here is really to be able to improve the pier and the roadways so we can handle up to 3 semis loading at one time, which basically takes care of 3 fish buyers at one time, which is just a tremendous opportunity. There was work done years ago from the Harbor District studying that, and there wasn't funding at the time. I think it was 2019 or 2020, if it's awarded, before we had to expend all the money. So we have a lot of time once we're told. The project I worked on before was road widening and improvements for 2 miles of highway into where I worked. And so this has a real potential for us. And sorry for the fast track on this, but it's a short window to apply. We're burning the midnight oil to get the application done, and it's a very difficult application process with federal government. Every agency seems to be involved in it, from military to non-military to whatever, as far as part of the approval departments. And so what we are asking for here is a recommendation to adopt a resolution of 08-14 for approving the submittal of the Tiger Grant application to the U.S. Department of Transportation in the amount of $3,440,000 for road and pier improvements for truck vehicle access to and from Pillar Point Harbor's Johnson Pier for commercial fish loading and transport.
Thank you. We have no comment cards on this, so Commissioner questions.
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
So I know this is just the memo, this isn't the actual grant application.
We're still plowing through to get that done. There's steps. There's many, many steps.
Would the board be able to see the grant application?
I'm sorry, I could hear
Can we
you.
see the grant application?
Probably after it's submitted. Right now, we're still, the way the federal government works with grants, you have to submit Part A, then you wait for them to say they got Part A, and they send an email back. Then you got a couple days to get Part B in, and it continues. You don't know what Part B looks like till you get the approval for Part A. You have no idea what their questions are, their requirements are, or anything. That's why the burning of the midnight oil. It takes that long to get through these.
And what's the deadline? Like when's the
End of this month.
So all the documents have to be submitted?
That's our hope.
So end of April. Okay. So then we could see the application.
We could bring it back to the board once we have everything in our hands, yeah.
I'd just like to see it because obviously we're going to be doing this again in the future.
If it turns out that, and if it doesn't fund this year, because, there's a lot of competition out there, we would be resubmitting probably they come back when they tell you why you didn't get it, which is probably 9 months from our date of submission.
Right.
We would get information of what to apply or change in our application for the following year.
So you get feedback.
We sure hope so.
Okay. I see this, you have a drawing for the pier.
It's a basic sketch of what we're trying to accomplish.
Reconfiguration. And so this sketch, which is interesting, I've never seen this before. Where did that come? Is that something you guys just came up with?
That was a historical intent that went on, Peter helped me out, about 10, 12 years ago. 1994.
Okay, but we wouldn't be locked into this configuration?
No, that's
if-
what I was saying is, basically our goal is basically to get Because obviously you're going to have coastal commission involved, you're going to have probably 12 other permits involved. Once we know we're funded, we have to start on those steps.
So this is just to give a general idea.
Yeah,
And then
it's got a
for
long
the-
ways to go.
For the, thanks for that, for the improvements to the access, and what I was confused about in reading this is, are we proposing that the intersection be changed, or just the access into the facility?
Well, if you're coming from Highway 1 into Pillar Point Harbor, and you're a semi-truck, as we presently have, you know where you have corners that are handicap-type ramps and all that? Basically, the trucks are driving over the sidewalks because they were designed for box trucks, like a U-Haul truck, versus a semi-truck.
So on Capistrano, where some of the mediums
Yeah,
are, that's
they're
where
literally going over the curbs just to get in.
So it wouldn't be so much that we were, because this just, I had no idea there was any interest in even changing those things, although it makes sense. So those details could get hammered out later, obviously.
Exactly.
We could look at.
Because there's the highway departments and the county and everybody else is going to have to, put their 2 cents in.
How do you have to convey it for the grant application? Do you have to also submit a drawing for that?
There's some draft drawings we'll be submitting, and you'll see those when we bring it back.
Okay, those were my questions.
Yeah,
And
the concept drawings, like a pre-designed concept drawing.
Okay, and then I was glad to see the language in the proposed resolution that says, the board has expressed its commitment to plan and act to sustain the commercial fishing industry at Pillar Point Harbor. I'm always happy to see that reiterated, because I think that obviously that's important to this grant, and it's important to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Before I do roll call, I just want to say, first of all, thank you. I loved seeing this when I saw Tiger. I was really excited because at the Port of Oakland, we go for Tiger grants too. And my question is more for staff and process. Where I work, and I don't know, maybe it's just because it's totally different, but where I work, we don't ask for board approval. We just hire a consultant, and then we have them write the Tiger grant, and then we try to get the grant. So can I ask why this is before us?
For me, when I was in Washington State, I was on the Federal Grant Approval Committee for Department of Homeland Security, which was everything you'd see for ports and related to ports. And one of the things that when you're on the committee reviewing, when you have letters from your local senators, state senators, the harbor district or ports or wherever you're at, the more letters of support saying we like this, the better. It weighs heavily on the committee. So we're working on getting a lot of letters too.
So you're working on getting a letter from the county as well?
Letters of support. Yeah, letters of support. And we do that as well.
It's just an important piece because I know it's kind of how thick the pile is when it comes to endorsements of it.
Mr. President, there's 2 other reasons for bringing it to your attention tonight. One is because we think this is important enough to make sure that the public is aware that we're doing this, and we have yet another medium of communicating that. Obviously, we wanted to enable the commission itself to do it, and that's because you need to adopt the resolution. Now, our understanding is that at this point, you probably don't absolutely need a required resolution, but we feel that it's important to have the board weigh in the form of this resolution to attach to our application to make it clear that the governing body of this agency stands behind that.
Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense to me. Okay. Every agency does it differently. That's why I thought I would ask. Some do, some don't. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you. So let's do a roll call, please.
There's no motion pending?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can make a
There's a
motion.
motion. There's got to be a motion. Sorry.
We adopt resolution 84-14 to authorize the general manager to submit a Tiger grant application for $3,440,000 to the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Hear a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano? Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we are now at item number 8, Turbo Data Contract for Parking Citation Processing. Ms. Harris.
Okay, as you know, or may not know, we have a parking citation process. So when we give out tickets at the harbors and or the marina, the ticket goes to Turbo Data. Turbo Data does all the processing, make sure we get paid, and then when the check comes to them for payment, they send it to us, and then the parking ticket is paid for. So we are in a program with San Mateo County and others within this county, and we're all under one group program for Turbo Data. So what this is a renewal of that process. The last time, I believe, Daly City was a lead. This time, San Mateo County will be the lead. They want to go out for RFP again, but because there's not enough time, they're extending the current contract that they have with Turbo Data for another year. And then next year, there may be something else that comes before the board to follow through on the RFP that they're doing. So this is to authorize the general manager to execute the one-year extension of the existing contract with Turbo Data Systems for parking ticket processing and related services.
I move that we authorize the general manager to execute a one-year extension of the existing contract with Turbo Data Systems for parking ticket processing and related services.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? Okay, I hear a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Mulsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Perebody?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker? President Bernardo?
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 9, moving right along, special event permit for Dolphin South End Runners Club. Ms. Harris.
Dolphin End South End Runners Club, they have been for a nonprofit organization. I believe they've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now, if not longer. They have an event on June 29th, 2014 and September 21st, 2014 at Oyster Point Marina. This is just, the reason I'm bringing it forward to the board, I would normally just go under special events, but because they're asking for a waiver of their fees, that's why it's coming forward to the board. So they're asking for the waiver of their $65 fee, and they have paid for the application fee of $150.
I move that
Thank
we
you.
waive the event fees and approve athletic event permit for nonprofit organization Dolphin South End Runners event on June 29, 2014 and September 21, 2014 at Oyster Point Marina Park.
Okay, thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
Before I know whether or not I would second it or not, I do have a question of staff. I agree that it's always good to support local nonprofits, and that's particularly the purview of the Harbor District. On the other hand, nonprofit can be a nonprofit with a $100 a year budget, or a nonprofit that has a $1 million a year budget, because over the years it's gotten more and more successful. And so if we're going to waive a fee, we should do that when there's merit to the organization, not just in terms of the work that they do, but in terms of the economics of how they run the particular event. So if this is an event that is charging entry fees and giving out lots of free T-shirts and other things, and has a budget for the event of a significant amount of money, we should seriously consider whether we're going to waive a $65 permit fee.
Right, adults are charged $5, teens are $3, and children are free.
Okay, and this has been going on for about...
And I would point out they are a 501c3.
2007, I think I see the first application. 2007.
And do we have some idea of what their budget for the event is?
I have no idea what the budget is, but they're going to have a total of 125 to 150 participants.
Okay,
They're going to have a table. I imagine that the $5 per person is going to be...
It's not like,
That's enough information. We're not talking about 5,000 runners or something
No.
like that with some of the problems we've had in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and I have a second. If there aren't any other questions, I'd like to do a roll call, please.
Mr. President?
Yes,
I
Mr.
believe
Brunel.
you've got a speaker form.
I have a speaker form for
And I don't
item...
know if it's about this item.
It is not.
It is not.
Okay, but thank you. So let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Olson?
Aye.
Commissioner Caravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker? President Bernardo?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Moving right along, we are now, we've already done 10, we're doing number 11. We're at bills and claims in the amount of $278,355.79. Mr. Treasurer?
Mr. President, members of the commission, I've reviewed the bills and claims and move approval of $278,355.79.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I hear a motion and a second. Commissioners, any questions on bills and
I
claims?
have some questions.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
Question number one, Las Tastarones, a very strange name, is listed here as a refund deposit of $100. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't he a convicted felon that's serving time?
I don't know who that is, but if he's owed a deposit, it doesn't,
Well,
we have a record that he...
I guess the question is, did he keep a boat at our facility?
My assumption would be that he's getting refunded a deposit, so therefore he kept the boat at the facility at one time, and he has money on our books that we have to pay him back.
Okay, well, I'd just like the staff to realize that he was convicted for running an illegal operation out of Princeton where he was stealing from the power grid to run a indoor marijuana growing facility. And then he was discovered to have multiple weapons in his home in Frenchman's Creek. So I just hope that we're screening people a little bit, because I can only imagine what he was doing with that boat.
Oh, just as a side note, I'm putting some sense in with my discussions with the finance director. I know that's some part of discussions that she would like to have with our new maritime attorney is what we can and can't ask for when we get new tenants in.
Screening process.
Screening process.
Got it.
So I know that's a concern that she has, and she hopes to have a discussion with the new maritime attorney.
It's a good
Yeah, I just wanted to mention it because I didn't know if you guys knew about that. But it was well publicized in the newspaper. That's how I knew about it. Okay, so in addition to that, I know we talked about advertising costs earlier and how we're going to try to put something together with that. And I see some of those are on here. So I'd like to work with President Bernardo because our finance director wants sort of a list of things that she should try to compile into this spreadsheet. Anyway, we can get back to that later. I also noticed that there are a lot of legal fees on this list of bills, and it appears that our legal fees are skyrocketing, and I imagine that's not a surprise to the board. I just wanted to mention that because I think just on this month alone, we're looking at, here's a bill for over $4,000, another one for $13,800, another one for $6,000, another one for $24,381, and another one for $8,367. That's all in one billing cycle for multiple attorneys' fees. So I think that as a district, we need to look at proactive ways to try to bring those costs down. And I have mentioned to the president of the board 3 ways I think we could potentially do that. Maybe we can talk about that at a future meeting, but it is something to be aware of. And I do think that the board should take proactive steps to do what we can within reason to try to, minimize our legal fees wherever we can. And
I would like to...
Mr. President?
Yeah, I just want to say something really quick before, and then I'll have Commissioner Tucker, and then I'll have Mr. Grinnell. But I do want to say that with regards to legal fees, obviously we have to pay our attorneys because they're doing their job of making sure that we follow the law. And what I mean by that is when we have any type of potential litigation or matters such as that, we have to do our due diligence, and we have to make sure that we take all of these matters seriously, and that's why these fees are racking up, because the district does take these items seriously, and, we have to pay these fees.
I agree that we have to pay these attorneys. That's not my point. My point is that there might be steps that the board could take, I've outlined 3, that would help eliminate potentially some of the need for these fees. And I think if there are opportunities for proactive steps to do things that are really basic, such as employment evaluations that are yearly, doing sensitivity training, things like that. These are just things that you do in the workplace that can help minimize legal fees. And so, I think we need to look at that as a district and see if there are some ways, and I think we've talked about that with the policies, we could review and update the harassment policy and other policies. There may be ways that we can try to minimize the district's risk and the need to hire up a bunch of attorneys. So that's all I'm suggesting. I'm not specifying any particular incidents or anything like that. I'm just saying, it's a lot of money, and if there is a way that we could try to minimize it, why wouldn't we?
I hear what you're saying, and this is definitely a discussion that we could talk about another time in light of the fact that we're going to update our policies. But I would like to say, and then I'm going to have Commissioner Tucker and then Mr. Grinnell, and if Ms. Harris wants to chime in. But if I'm not mistaken, we are abiding by, in terms of, from an HR perspective, my understanding, in terms of the latest policies, and they are our current policies. We are abiding by our current policies, and there are regular evaluations. Those are done regularly. Those are
I
being
don't
done.
know.
So
I don't know if the employees get regular evaluations. I imagine they probably do, but I know that at least one employee does not get a regular performance evaluation, and that's our general manager. So I've already pointed that out, and the board voted not to give our general manager a performance evaluation, and that is odd, frankly. And as far as sensitivity training goes, if sensitivity training has happened, I don't know. We could find out tonight. I'm sure our HR manager would know, director, sorry. But I know that it hasn't been provided to the board, and as far as I know, the general manager and upper management hasn't had sensitivity training. And when you do sensitivity training, you do it for everybody.
Okay, now here's the thing. I'm not going to get into the whole sort of legal aspect of it, but my understanding of, and it's not sensitivity training, it's called specifically sexual harassment training. It's mandatory. For government agencies, if I'm not mistaken, managers and higher, and I'm sure Ms. Harris would know this more. It's exactly, everybody in a supervisory, thank you for that. Supervisory position, it's mandatory. And I know that I have to take it, in fact, I take it twice. I take it for the district, and I take it in my day job because I'm a manager. And so it's mandatory. It's something that's filed. It's not something that's optional for me. So, I'm sure that Ms. Harris, but in any case, we're going to be talking about all these things for when we talk about policy updates. So why don't I have Commissioner Tucker and then Mr. Grinnell, because you had your hands up earlier. Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you. I find my colleagues' remarks regarding legal fees very interesting and very self-serving. I can report to the commission and to those here attending that thus far we have spent $82,000 on attorney's fees for various complaints filed within this room. And I think that's not the end of it. I expect that our bills will go over $100,000. And in those cases and in those instances, there's no way to control that. There's no way to have prevented that, short of not filing a complaint, which is everybody's right to do. But that's where the major cost of attorney's fees comes from. No other superfluous or misuse of anything else. They're all from harassment complaints filed by this body.
I would like to respond to that when it's my turn.
Okay, we'll go in order. Mr. Grinnell, please.
I'll pass. Not necessary.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennan.
So with all due respect, I would like to go through the chair and state that the comment made by Commissioner Tucker was misinformed. Not everyone present in this room has filed complaints that have resulted in attorney fees. There are multiple people who have filed complaints to this district regarding harassment.
3.
There's more than 3 because this is not the first time this has happened. So
10
that
years, are you speaking 10 years ago?
I'm talking about the history of the district.
I'm talking about the cost of legal fees right now as you presented through my treasurer's report.
So I perceive what you say as an attack on me.
Oh, God.
And I want to make that clear. You said that I was self-serving.
Yes, you are.
Okay, let's let her finish. And
That's an attack on me. And the president allowed you to say that, and I think that was inappropriate, especially considering the fact that I am not the only person who's filed complaints. Complaints have been filed by others. So why attack me and not the others? It feels a bit like retaliation, and I think it's completely inappropriate at this meeting.
Retaliation for what?
Would you like me to elaborate? Because I will.
Commissioner Tucker, let's just let her finish, and then we will finish this item. I'd like to move on from this.
As a board member, I think it's completely appropriate for me to want to talk about the legal costs that are skyrocketing. I expect to be treated like a professional on this board, and that hasn't happened here tonight.
You have to act like one.
Did you really just say that? You have to act like one?
Did you hear that?
Is that how, is that how you talk?
Okay.
Yeah, I did hear
Okay,
that.
commissioners, please, let's just have one person talking at a time, and then, so we can move on from this item.
I'm being
because I'd like to-
attacked,
Oh, my.
and you're not doing anything as the president of the board to stop it.
Okay, I have just gavelled on this. Okay, so please,
Would
Commissioner
you
Brennan,
please tell
finish.
him that that's inappropriate?
Please finish, just,
I'm done.
okay, thank you. You had your hand up? Yes. Is this on this item?
Just get clarification from, if you want to send me an email, I'd love to have it regarding exactly what you mean by sensitivity training. I don't want to assume that I know what it means, so if you could send me it, I'd love it.
You're the expert. You're the HR person. I know you know more about it than
Well,
I do.
I mean, sensitivity training, there's various sorts, so I'll put something together and see if that's what you're...
All I'm interested in is if there is a way that we could try to reduce the number of harassment complaints and retaliation complaints that have been made by multiple people. I think it would be in the best interest of the district. And so I am trying to be proactive and put the district's finances under consideration. So that's what we're doing with this agenda item. We're talking about the bills here.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this item before we do a roll call vote? Commissioner Brennan, did you have other questions on these line items?
Just that because I am not able to review bills and claims, I am not going to be voting for this item, meaning that I can't look at the receipts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Let's do a roll call vote then. Or wait, no, sorry. Was there a motion and second on this already? It was. Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Opposed?
Commissioner Wolfinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker? President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We are now at item 12. Item 12, Pillar Point
Change tape.
change tape. Okay, so why don't we take a how many minute break? 5-minute break? 1 minute
We'll do
break.
5 minutes. We'll do 5 minutes.
How about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for items 12 through 18.